Israel Adesanya just got knocked out in the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia. Adesanya versus Imavov, and Kenny Okoye is out there crying somewhere because he loves Adesanya and thinks Adesanya is one of the greatest fighters of all time and one of the best strikers. And while he is correct, I still think he's overrated, which is why I dropped my video on why Adesanya is overrated. And I think this proves me more correct. Adesanya is now 1-4 in his last 5, and now he loses another fight. And you can argue that Adesanya is a chinny fighter at this point. He's been dropped by Strickland, Pereira, and Imavov, and who else? Dricus. He's been dropped a ton now, and it's like, does Israel Adesanya want to continue to fight? I do think his career has been a bit overrated. I don't think he's one of the best strikers in the UFC. Well, that's not right. He is one of the best strikers in the UFC. I don't think he's like top 3, top 2. That's what I've always disagreed with. He is a great striker, but listen, man, Israel Adesanya, he was a great champion. He had 5 title defenses. You always want to see this guy fight, no matter if you dislike him or not. But at the end of the day, I do think he's washed up. He's 1-4 in his last 5. Granted, great competition, but getting KO'd by Imavov, man. I mean, Jared Cannonier looked better against Imavov, and Jared Cannonier is 40 years old. So I think Adesanya should push for a fight with Alex Pereira at light heavyweight, or he should hang it up because at this point, at middleweight, man, 35 years old, lost 4 of his last 5. It's a tough road back to the top for Israel Adesanya, and I don't know if he mentioned that he wants to retire or not, but the fight was good while it lasted, and I will say Adesanya did look decent in the first round. Outside of getting clipped by a huge uppercut, his takedown defense looked pretty damn good. Imavov shot a bunch of takedowns. He shot 3 of them in the first round, and he didn't get any of them. Adesanya was sprawling. He was doing a very good job at avoiding the grappling of Nasruddin Imavov, but that was very smart by Imavov to initiate the grappling with Izzy, just to show him, hey, I have this grappling in my back pocket, and if you think that I'm not going to use it, you're wrong. But at the end of the day, Israel Adesanya takes another L, and yeah, it's tough for Izzy, man. Listen, Izzy was never my favorite fighter. He was never my friend just because of the cringe one-liners, but I will say, as an Israel Adesanya hater to some degree, I do appreciate his championship run. I do appreciate him fighting often and defending his belt and taking on all challenges. There's one thing that you can't say about Adesanya, and that is he ducked competition. He always fought the best. He asked for Yoel Romero. Granted, it was a boring fight. He asked for him. He wanted to fight him. And he's always fighting top contenders. So at the end of the day, he is losing, but he is losing to the top of the top. It's not like he's losing to Joe Schmuck. So respect to Adesanya. But with all that being said, I still think he's an overrated striker. I don't think he's a top 5 or maybe even top 10 striker in the UFC. He just makes too many technical errors, and he's been clipped so many times. And he got dominated by Sean Strickland over the course of 5 rounds. If you're the best, one of the best strikers in the UFC, there's no way that you're getting dominated over a course of 5 rounds by anybody. Call it a stylistic bad matchup. At the end of the day, he got dominated by Strickland on the feet. He got kind of dominated by Pereira on the feet in the first fight in MMA. Granted, or at least in a couple rounds, he did do well in the first round and rock Pereira. But in that 5th round, he was getting beaten up pretty badly until the ref stopped it. And yeah, man, Adesanya, like I said, it's a tough road for Adesanya if he wants to keep fighting, man. 1-4 in your last 5. It's like, what do you do with him at this point? Do you do a Whitaker trilogy? Does he fight somebody like Marvin Vettori, who came out on Twitter and made a joke saying, if Israel Adesanya ever wants to win again, he's going to need to fight me, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. But yeah, and Nasruddin Imavov looked great in the fight. This guy looked absolutely shredded and in the best shape of his life, and he showed up on the big stage. I'm not the biggest fan of Imavov. I don't know. There's just something about him, something about his face that I don't like. This guy looks like he's French and he just eats a bunch of croissants all day. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, Nasruddin Imavov in the main event, KO'd Izzy, man, and you could argue early stoppage, but at the end of the day, Izzy went down pretty badly. I thought he was out cold for a second, but it looked like he got his wits, and Imavov landed a few follow-up shots, and the ref stepped in, and what can you do, man? I know Adesanya would probably like to go out on his shield, but probably for the best for his brain and a lot of the damage he's taken. I mean, this guy had like 80 kickboxing fights, and now he has like 30-something fights in MMA. Does he really want to be taking like that much damage, you know? And for Izzy, this is the 3rd time in the last 5 fights he's been stopped, I think. I think he's been stopped 3 out of his last 5. Once by Dricus, once by Imavov, and maybe once by Pereira, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, like I keep saying, man, it's tough for Izzy. I did pick Israel Adesanya to win. I went 8-3 on this card on picks. I swept the prelim 6-0, but then I predicted 2-3 on the main card. Israel Adesanya, I did think he would win by decision. I had him 49-46. I thought he would be the more elusive striker between him and Imavov and just be able to kind of stay on the outside and just beat up Imavov's leg with kicks and just pick and prod at him. To a 49-46 decision. I knew that Izzy wasn't going to be able to finish Imavov. Imavov's a very tough guy. He's not a Paulo Costa. He's not a chinny fighter for the most part. You know, Imavov can take a dang good shot. And yeah, man, I mean, even if Imavov's not my favorite fighter, at the end of the day, every time this guy gets in there, he's leveling up. He's looking like a better fighter. So respect to him. He gets the win over Israel Adesanya. And for Imavov, man, it's like, you get this guy a title shot next after the winner of do you do Imavov versus the loser of DDP versus Strickland, or since he finished Izzy in the second round, do you give Imavov a title shot after Hamzat fights for the title? I don't know if he wants to sit out that long, but I mean, you could argue this guy deserves a title shot. 4-fight win streak, just KO'd a former champion in Izzy, but I would not mind seeing him fight one more time before he gets a title shot. Either way, amazing performance by Imavov. Tough night for Izzy at the office. I'd like to see Israel Adesanya retire. I don't think he needs to prove anything more. One of the second greatest middleweight of all time, 5 title defenses, fought all the best challenges that came to him, and active champion. No reason for this guy to keep going. 35 years old. I say he rides off into the sunset, enjoys his life. Why take more brain damage? He's been doing this nearly his whole life, but obviously it's his decision. But yeah, overall, a solid main event and a finish. So that's what happened, guys. Let's get on to the co-main event where I picked Shamil Gaziev to beat Michael Venom Page by decision. And let me just say this about the judges. I thought that the judges were going to be biased towards the Saudi fighters. That was not the case. They were very fair tonight. They gave Vinicius Oliveira the decision over Saeed Nurmagomedov, which I thought they were going to give it to Saeed. They gave the decision to Michael Page over Shamil Gaziev. So I will admit I was wrong about the judging. They were very fair tonight outside of the Jamal Puagas fight. That was the only fight where it was a little questionable. That was a robbery, I think. I think you can argue Puagas round 2 and 3, but Shamil Gaziev got exposed, man, by Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page, a welterweight, came up and I'd argue he schooled Shamil Gaziev on the feet. I mean, Shamil looked like he was very frustrated the whole fight, trying to just get inside on Michael Venom Page, who was just dashing in and out and just kind of punishing Shamil anytime he tried to come in. I mean, and Michael Venom Page, dude, I thought he was going to hit a flying knee and knock out Shamil Bullet so many times in this fight. Every time he'd throw one, I'd be like, oh, is he going to catch him with that? But he ultimately did not get a flying knee KO. He went to the cards, and yeah, Michael Venom Page looked great in this fight. Shamil Bullet looked decent, but I mean, he kind of got exposed. Let's be real, guys. At the end of the day, I don't know why I picked Shamil Gaziev. He hasn't really beat anybody that's that great. Armin Petrosian, it was a great knockout, but he was never going to do that to a Michael Venom Page. Michael Page is too fast, too slick on the feet. And how impressive is it for Michael Page at 37 years old to still have that kind of speed? I mean, this guy at 37 is faster than probably the entire welterweight division. Who at welterweight is more fast than Michael Venom Page? This guy, now I can understand why a guy like Ian Gary wanted to grapple with him, because who would want to stand with this guy? He would have made Ian Gary look like an absolute fool if Ian Gary didn't grapple. And yeah, you got to mix the martial arts against this guy. If you try and stay on the striking with Michael Venom Page and you don't knock him out, he's going to make you look silly. I mean, who can contest with this guy on the feet? Yeah, great win from Michael Venom Page. He wins at 29-28, I believe, across the board, if I'm not mistaken. I think Shamil Bullet got 1 round. Not sure what round that was, but yeah, bear with me, guys. I did have to watch these fights while I was at work, and it was hard to keep up with it, and my internet kept freezing. ESPN Plus kept shutting down on my phone. It was very irritating, but I did get to watch the fights, and I'm grateful for that. And yeah, Shamil Bullet kind of got exposed. I mean, it is Michael Venom Page, who's one of the best strikers in the world, so you can't really say Shar is trash, but he is unproven against grapplers, and he's never really fought anybody that great, so I'm not that surprised. I think this would be a good lesson for Shara. 15-1 now. It's his first professional loss, and no shame in losing to Michael Venom Page. He was a Bellator champion, and he's arguably the best striker at welterweight, and maybe even at middleweight. This guy's striking is incredible, but Shamil Gaziev, I don't think he was ready for prime time, brother. Maybe you do Shamil Gaziev versus Bo Nickel next. Test that wrestling. That'd be a good fight for Bo Nickel. Because if Bo Nickel don't take this guy down, he's going to get shredded on the feet by Shamil, because Bo Nickel is no Michael Venom Page. But for Michael Venom Page, he goes up a weight class against the undefeated guy in Saudi Arabia, and pretty much in his home turf. And yeah, he secures a unanimous decision victory. Michael Venom Page looked great. He looked fast. He was taunting in the fight, in and out, lightning fast on the feet, as always. So I enjoyed the co-main event. As I said, I did pick Sharabullet to win by a decision, but Michael Venom Page, rightfully so, won the fight 2-1, maybe even 3-0 in some people's eyes. Yeah. Nah, I think it was 1-1. Did Shara drop him? No, he wasn't credited with a knockdown, I don't think. But either way, it was a good fight. Good back and forth, but Michael Venom Page was just way too fast, way too good for Sharabullet. Good co-main event. Now let's get on to something that was kind of depressing. The feature fight. Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now I'm used to Jairzinho Rozenstruik looking mid, but let's just say Tom Aspinall turned Sergey Pavlovich into Bilal Muhammad. And what I mean by that is, bro's literally looking like Bilal Muhammad, just grappling and pushing forward and grappling Jairzinho Rozenstruik to a decision. And somebody made a pretty good point. They said Sergey against Aspinall, he got knocked out. So he's like, all right, I'm going to try to be more technical. Tried to be more technical against Alexander Volkov. Got pieced up. He's like, all right, now I'm going to try the grappling. Grappled against Rozenstruik and found success. So maybe we get Sergey Nurmagomedov for the rest of his fights, because although it was a bit of smudging and we aren't used to Sergey Pavlovich, grappling and stinking it up for 3 rounds straight. He did have to do what he had to do to get the win, man. He gets back into the win column. Maybe this will be good for his confidence. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was on a 6-fight win streak, all first-round knockouts. And to get destroyed by Tom Aspinall and then just to get shredded on the feet by Alexander Volkov, I kind of understand why he resorted to the grappling. He probably didn't want to lose another fight. And yeah, Sergey Pavlovich did what he had to do. Definitely probably the most boring fight on the entire card, just because most people, I think this fight was -700 for it to go to decision, and ultimately it went to decision. So a lot of people were disappointed. I picked Sergey Pavlovich to win by a knockout in like the first minute and a half, and boy, was I wrong. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he kind of looked like himself, just the same old guy. Jairzinho Rozenstruik has always kind of had soy takedown defense. If you have any kind of takedowns, you're taking Jairzinho to the ground and you're destroying him. I mean, I think Jairzinho Rozenstruik got sliced through like butter by Jelton Almeida. But Sergey Pavlovich just proved to be prime Habib in there against Rozenstruik and just kept taking him down and securing position. And I don't know, man. Are we going to see a tentative and grappling heavy Sergey Pavlovich for the rest of his career? Who knows? He's a massive guy. He went on a huge win streak. And maybe his ego got carried away with his power, and that was ultimately his demise and why he got 2 losses. But now we see a more wrestling-heavy approach out of Sergey Pavlovich, and he secures the unanimous decision over Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I'd say a good win for Pavlovich to get back into the win column, but not an impressive win. It wasn't exactly like wowed by this performance. It was a good win. I'm happy he got back into the win column, but for me, it's like this guy went from one of the most exciting and brutalizing heavyweights to a Bilal Muhammad type of fighting style. And I respect it, man. I respect it. At the end of the day, this guy's putting his brain cells on the line. I understand he doesn't want to get chinned again, so he's got to win by all means. So shout out to Sergey Pavlovich. He gets back in the win column. And for Jairzinho Rozenstruik, another loss, 36 years old. Does he call it a career? I mean, Jairzinho Rozenstruik can make some money, but at this point, I don't think this guy's ever going to be a champion. He's 36 now. He's taking a lot of damage. It's heavyweight. I think he's been knocked out once or twice by Francis and maybe somebody else. So maybe you hang it up if you're Rozenstruik. Maybe you get a Derek Lewis matchup. Who knows? But I can't say a good feature fight, an okay fight. Let's get on to the next fight, which was the second fight on the main card. Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira. And this was a good fight. And what I learned was Said Nurmagomedov's gas tank is always going to be terrible. This is a guy that kind of blows his wad in the first round. He kind of goes for broke. Like, dude, Said Nurmagomedov's looking great in the first round. Then the second round, he looks winded. In the third round, it looks like this guy's never trained cardio in his entire life because he blows his wad. And I think Vinicius Oliveira just paced himself better. At one point, he had a choke. I'm not sure. I think it was in round 3. Round 2 or 3, he had a choke locked up. And I was like, oh, this is it. Said's going to tap. Said was super, exhausted. But the choke was never fully in. I guess I just saw it from a weird angle. It was never fully in. And Said got out. But ultimately, the judges rightfully gave it to Vinicius Oliveira, who just outworked and you could say out-cardioed Said Nurmagomedov. I mean, Said blew his wad in the first round, and Vinicius Oliveira just did what he had to do to win, man. A crafty performance by Vinicius. I did pick Vinicius Oliveira to win, and he got the W. So shout out to my boy Vinicius. And Said Nurmagomedov went 1 for 9 on takedowns. And, anytime you're going for takedowns, unless you're Marab, you will gas out. And trying to take down your opponents while also throwing tons of strikes on the feet, you're going to gas out, and that's exactly what happened to Said Nurmagomedov. The Nurmagomedov team drops another loss. Now, I don't think this guy's part of like the Abdumanap camp. He might be. I think I might have heard on the broadcast that he was part of the Abdumanap camp for this training camp. So who knows? But Vinicius Oliveira, a good scrap for him, a good 3-round win, 29-28 decision for him. And maybe he's looking towards the rankings, man. Maybe you do like a Vinicius Oliveira versus a Kyler Phillips or versus a Pedro Munoz. You know, this guy's should be fighting close to the rankings. I think Said Nurmagomedov is ranked like anywhere between like 17 and 19 in the Bantamweight division. So, yeah, for Vinicius, good win, good 3-round experience for him. And for Said, it's tough. I think he was out for like a year and a half. He takes another loss, and this guy just blows his wad. I think Said needs to focus on pacing himself better in fights because he always seems to go haywire in the first round. And then by the time round 3 comes, he's looking like Shamil Gaziev, which we'll get to that. Shout out to my boy, the GOAT. Let's get on to the next fight. Perez Ziam versus Mike Davis. I picked Mike Davis to win, and kind of the same thing. Mike Davis absolutely gassed out. His gas tank looked terrible in this fight. I don't know if he had a bad weight cut or a bad training camp, but he did not look like the Mike Davis I'm used to. Perez Ziam, man, just too much for Mike Davis. He cut Mike Davis over the eye really bad, I think, in the first or second round. And there was just blood everywhere, just all over Perez Ziam. And Mike Davis had some decent grappling exchanges in reverse position a couple times with Perez Ziam. But overall, Perez Ziam proved to be too much in the grappling. He had a lot more control time. I think at one point Mike Davis got a submission attempt. It says 1. I forgot what submission he went for. But Perez Ziam just out-hustled and outworked Mike Davis and just proved to be the better fighter overall, better in the grappling, better in the stand-up, better in the cardio. Perez Ziam just, I wouldn't say he put on an absolute clinic, but he comfortably beat Mike Davis pretty easily. And Perez Ziam goes up to a 5-fight win streak. And maybe Perez Ziam should be looking up to the rankings too. Do you give this guy like a Benoit Saint Denis, French on French crime? Do you give him like a Jalen Turner or a Grant Dawson? I don't know, but he is on a 5-fight win streak, and he looked great in this fight. And for Mike Davis, it's tough because I think Mike Davis, he only fights like once a year, man. That's another loss. Hopefully we see him more often, work on that conditioning. He didn't look himself in this fight, though. Even the commentators were saying it. Mike Davis did not look like his traditional self, but nonetheless, it was a good scrap, a decent scrap, some good grappling exchanges, but for the most part, Perez Ziam cut Mike Davis, came out on top, and secured the unanimous decision. Let's get on to the absolute GOAT. Tom Aspinall has been real quiet. No, not yet. Not yet. That's the next fight. Muhammad Naimov wins over Khan Ofli. This is a fight where I couldn't really watch because I kept getting calls at work, but from what I know, Muhammad Naimov just out-grappled and outworked Khan Ofli and secured himself in a unanimous decision. Not much to say about this fight. Just got 2 takedowns, got some good control time, landed strikes. Khan Ofli, I think, reversed positions on him a couple times, but for the most part, Muhammad Naimov just outworked him and outpaced him to a unanimous decision. Let's get past this fight because I want to talk about the GOAT. The GOAT, guys. Shamil, the Mill Beef Chief Gaziev. Let's go, dude. Tom Aspinall been real quiet since Shamil Gaziev one-punch KO'd Thomas Peterson in the first round. Shamil proved that his cardio is improved, and he proved that his physique is looking like prime Arman Sarukian. Let's go, man. Shamil gets it done. The GOAT, first round KO, TKO, man, and it couldn't have went any better for Shamil Gaziev. Just a big gnarly overhand, as Lucas Tracy would say. Hits Thomas Peterson, sends him flying to the canvas, and the fight's over. Walk-off KO. Shamil the GOAT Gaziev gets it done. The Beef Chief. We need Shamil Gaziev merch immediately. I need a shirt that says Shamil the Beef Chief Gaziev. And if he doesn't drop it, I might have to drop it because this guy, I love Shamil Gaziev, man. I don't know. There's something about him. There's a goofiness to this guy. He just looks like I don't know. He's like the goofiest looking guy I've ever seen at heavyweight. It's just so funny. And he's just such a meme, man. Just to see him get a knockout, man. Shout out to Shamil Gaziev. Guy only has 1 loss, man. He's 34, which is prime for heavyweight, to be honest. Anyway, 34 to like 38 is like prime for heavyweight division. So, hey, Shamil Gaziev's title run starts now. Tom Aspinall, he's been real quiet since this fight. He's shaking in his boots. Shamil Gaziev gets it done. I mean, granted, it's Thomas Peterson. This guy kind of sucks, but I mean, look at Thomas Peterson. He's built like a bag of milk. This guy looks like he hasn't trained a day in his life, but yeah, who am I to say that? I'm not a fighter, but shout out to Shamil Gaziev. He does the Mark Hunt special, the walk-off KO, round 1, 1minute and 48 seconds in. He gets it done, man. And for Shamil Gaziev, let's do Shamil Gaziev versus like Tai Tuivasa, dude. Let's get some swinging and banging going. Or Shamil Gaziev versus Derek Lewis. the Black Beast versus the Beef Chief. I need to see it, boys. Let's go. But dude, I was so hype. I was screaming at work when this freaking knockout happened. I was like, oh, the Beef Chief, he's coming for that belt. Let's go. So shout out to Shamil Gaziev for the W. Let's get on to the next fight. The last fight I want to talk about on this card. The first two fights were uneventful. Terrence McKinney gets back into the win column. Now, let's not hype this up too much. It's Damir Hadzovic, who hasn't been fighting much recently. And yeah, he pretty much just got taken down to the ground immediately. Terrence McKinney gets on his back, pounds him out. Ref stops it. That's the end of the fight. Terrence McKinney, I knew he would win this fight. I went 6-0 in the prelims. I mean, if Terrence McKinney lost to Damir Hadzovic, no offense, but he should just call it a career because Damir Hadzovic is just like mid everywhere. He's not really great anywhere. He's not a knockout artist. He's not an amazing boxer or kicker or wrestler. He's just kind of there, you know? And Terrence McKinney, although he's been KO'd a few times, he's pretty dangerous in the first round. I think there's a stat. Terrence McKinney, out of his 50, he has 15 first-round finishes, which is absolutely nuts. This guy either is getting killed or he's killing out there. That's what Terrence McKinney does. And yeah, man, he just ran right through Damir Hadzovic. So if Terrence McKinney could work on his chin, man, or not his chin, you can't really do much about your chin. If he could work on his defense, which calls his chin to get cracked, this guy could be a problem. But it's just he has really good grappling, underrated grappling, and he has good knockout power. But it's like he gets himself in trouble by getting overconfident with throwing shots, and he ends up getting KO'd. But yeah, Terrence McKinney gets back into the win column. Happy for him. And yeah, ultimately, guys, the UFC Saudi Arabia card wrapped up. I'd rate it like a 7, 6.5, 7 out of 10. A pretty good card. The prelims were kind of uneventful at moments, but I was so happy for Shamil the Mill Deal to get a one-punch KO. That was beautiful. And then in the main card, I had 3 of my picks went wrong after getting the prelims perfect. But 8-3 on the card, can't complain too much. Adesanya's cooked 1-4 in his last 5. I personally think he should hang it up. And for Nasruddin Imavov, get him a title eliminator, or he fights for the title next after Hamzat. Who knows? And for Shara Bullet, maybe a step down in competition, maybe a Bo Nickel fight. For Michael Venom Page, a fight in the welterweight division, maybe him versus Wonderboy, although that could be a stinker, just two guys looking at each other. But yeah, this was my thoughts and breakdown of the card. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Drop a like on the video if you like these kind of videos and breakdowns. I always appreciate it, guys. I'm out, and peace out.